Good morning again, everybody. I have a question for you. It's a rather pertinent question. How many of you have a favorite chair? Not a lot of hands. Okay, there are some hands going up. I have a favorite chair. I've got my place. I like to sit at home. It's the kind of chair that just seems to cradle you while you read or watch TV or chat with others. How many of you, when it comes to your favorite chair, feel just a little bit disappointed when you enter the room and find someone else sitting in your favorite chair? Georgia, I'm with you, Georgia. Kids, get out of the chair. This is Dad's seat. That's right. Your heart sinks just a little bit. That chair is your place for rest and for comfort. Now, imagine that you're the kind of person who, and some of you would be this, that don't like storms. The crashing thunder, the wind-whipped rain, the flashes of electricity. And every time a storm rises, so do you, no longer in that comfortable chair, you begin to pace. Every jolt of lightning makes you jump. Every thunderous boom sets your heart racing. Until, of course, inevitably, you realize that the storm is outside and that you're safe inside. Your anxiety and your fear, see, they don't make the storm disappear. It only creates a new storm, a different type of storm in your mind and in your heart. You stop pacing, you stop striving, and instead you choose to be still, to maybe sit in your favorite comfy chair. You choose rest in the midst of the storm. There are a lot of storms in the world and in life. Some storms create actual danger, while others only present an illusion of danger or catastrophe. Some storms are external, while others exist only in our minds, full of strife, accusations, worry, and unmet expectations. Regardless of the type of storm, or if our lives are actually in danger or not, we are called to rest in the fear of the Lord, to be saddled with awe and wonder, cradled in his mighty hands as he defends, guards, and leads us to his dwelling place. The question is, will your awe be greater for the Lord than your fear of what may come in the world or in life? Will you be still, at rest with God through the storms, trusting that he will lead you to green pastures through the valley of the shadow of death? And how are we Christians to respond to the storms? Not just, a little trouble with my microphone standing in my ear this morning. There we go. Not just on a macro scale, considering the state of the world, but here, now, today, among one another and in a community that both seems safe, but is also desperately in the need of Jesus Christ. On this point, it's appropriate to meditate on Psalm 46, especially given the storms of life that are raging around the world right now. I'm going to read the psalm in its entirety if you want to open up to it. Psalm 46. God is our refuge and strength, a helper who is always found in times of trouble. Therefore, we will not be afraid, though the earth trembles and the mountains topple into the depths of the seas, though its water roars and foams and the mountains quake with its turmoil. There is a river, its streams delight the city of God, the holy dwelling place of the Most High. God is within her. She will not be toppled. God will help her when the morning dawns. nations rage, kingdoms topple, the earth melts when he lifts his voice. The Lord of armies is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. Come, see the works of the Lord, who brings devastation on the earth. He makes wars cease throughout the earth. He shatters bows and cuts spears to pieces. He sets wagons ablaze. Stop fighting and know that I am God, exalted among the nations, exalted on the earth. The Lord of armies is with us. The God of Jacob is our stronghold. Now, you're probably more accustomed to hearing a different translation of Psalm 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. We hear that and think of calm meditation. But there it is, nestled amongst verses of war, God's justice on the earth and his eternal dominion. Be still and know that God is God. None of the wars, none of the fighting, the discontent and division, the moral corruption, the petty and great storms are beyond the scope and power and authority of God. Peace will reign, either in our hearts and minds now as we rest in the fear of the Lord, or upon his glorious return. And this is the challenge to you. When he returns, will he find you pacing back and forth? Will he catch you taking justice into your own hands or afraid of what may be? Will you be found accusing others of not doing enough or complaining because the storms confront your expectations or security and the pursuit of happiness? Or will you follow the Lord through the unknowns of life, face the storms, and rest in his eternal dwelling place that will never be toppled? In whom will you place your faith? In whom will you place your fear appropriately in the midst of the storm? Will you follow where Jesus leads, even when the coming storms are yet unknown and unseen? The miracle of Jesus calming the storm speaks to this challenge. That's really what I want to talk about today. It appears in 3 of the 4 Gospels. We're going to actually look at all 3 of them, verse by verse. Luke 8:22. One day, that being Jesus, one day he and his disciples got into a boat and he told them, let's cross over to the other side of the lake. So they set out. Mark 4, verse 35 through 36. On that day, when evening had come, he told them, let's cross over to the other side of the sea. So they left the crowd and took him along, since he was in the boat, and other boats were with him. Or Matthew 8, verse 23. As he got into the boat, his disciples followed him. If you want to follow along with this, go to Luke 8, go to Mark 4, or Matthew 8, and just enjoy that. Choose your gospel there. They set sail from Capernaum on the western coast of the Galilean Sea toward the region of the Gerasenes on the eastern coast. Jesus and his disciples, as Mark says, left in the evening after teaching the crowd, and other boats followed them. The destination would have been known to them. The sea itself, the Sea of Galilee, is roughly 6 miles wide from east to west and 13 miles from north to south. So this is not a very long journey, especially for some of his disciples who were seasoned fishermen on these waters. The journey was familiar. It's not hard to follow Jesus, when we can clearly see what's right in front of us. It's not hard to follow Jesus when he takes us into familiar territory. It's not hard when the unexpected, or it's a lot harder when the unexpected hits us, when unseen storms arise and our lives and our livelihood are threatened. It's easy to be still and to know that he is God when the waters are calm, easy to stop fighting when there seems to be nothing to fight. But he doesn't tell us to be still and know that he's God in the midst of a season of peace, but in the midst of a season of war. It's much more difficult when lightning crashes and our peace is disrupted. And our mortal fears must be submitted to the fear of the Lord in awe and wonder of his mercy and power. Luke 8:23-24. And as they were sailing, he fell asleep. Then a fierce windstorm came down on the lake. They were being swamped and were in danger. They came and woke him up, saying, Master, Master, we're going to die. Mark chapter 4, verse 37-38. A great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking over the boat, so that the boat was already being swamped. He, being Jesus, was in the stern, sleeping on the cushion. So they woke him up and said to him, Teacher, don't you care that we're going to die? Matthew 8, verse 24 and 25. Suddenly, a violent storm arose on the sea, so that the boat was being swamped by the waves. But Jesus kept sleeping. So the disciples came and woke him up, saying, Lord, save us, we're going to die. Jesus had just spent the day teaching the crowds. Now, you may not realize it, but that's actually very exhausting. I do it every week, but nowhere close to all day. And you better believe that the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual weight of preaching and teaching begs for a Sunday afternoon nap. Jesus had no cause for alarm. Even if the Father had revealed to Jesus what storm would soon arise, Jesus had no cause for alarm. He rested in the Father's care. So exhausted as Jesus was, he found a place in the stern to sleep. The violent storm arose just as storms of all kinds rise for all of us. His disciples, seasoned fishermen and all, quaked in fear as their boat was tossed to and fro on the sea by the wind. The waves crashed over the rails and onto the deck, filling the boat's innards with water. They were most certainly, undoubtedly, in mortal danger. But danger doesn't imply impending doom and destruction when you're with Jesus Christ. Amen. The storm disrupted their expectations of a smooth journey. It left them face to face with their mortality and faith in the presence of the Son of God. They had the courage to follow Jesus onto the sea, but not the courage to follow Jesus' rest in the midst of the storm. Their fear led to disrupting rest. It led to accusation and proved that their all was misplaced in the wind rather than in Jesus' powerful presence. Teacher, don't you care that we're going to die? They shouted as they awoke him. Now that's a rather definitive statement that we're going to die. And it's also a rather accusatory tone, isn't it? Don't you care? They saw the danger and they jumped to doom. When you look at the world's rising storms, and there are many of them right now, when you look at the world's rising storms or are faced with more personal storms in your own life, do you turn to accusing God of not doing enough for you, or of not caring about your situation, or of not caring about the state of the world? Or will you be still and know that he is God, come what may upon the earth, that he is with you as you journey to the other side? What fears do you personally hold that reveal your false expectations of God, that reveal your accusations of his protection, or of your striving on earth for the things of the world. Don't let your rest be interrupted by worldly fears, but let your fear of the Lord lead you to rest. Will you have courage to rest through the storms? Luke chapter 8, verse 24. Then he got up and rebuked the wind and the raging waves. So they ceased, and there was a calm. Mark 4:39. He got up and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Silence, be still." The wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Matthew 8:26. He said to them, "Why are you afraid, you of little faith?" Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. Again, Psalm 46, verse 1 through 3. God is our refuge and strength, a helper who is always found in times of trouble. Therefore, we will not be afraid, though the earth trembles and the mountains topple into the depths of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with its turmoil. Do you have the courage to be still and know that he is God, your refuge and your strength? Do you have the courage to rest in him, to trust that he is your helper, a helper who is always found in times of trouble? Or is your faith such that your feet are dug into his holy ground, your face set like flint towards his eternal dwelling place, so that you can say with confidence, "I will not be afraid, though the earth trembles and the mountains topple into the depths of the seas, though its water roars and foams and the mountains quake with turmoil"? Can you say with confidence that you will not be afraid? There is hope with Jesus Christ through the storm. And he will not lead you to eternal destruction, but to the other side of life's seas, regardless of what storms may come. He has the power over the journey itself. He has power over the rest. He has power over the wind and the waves. And the storms may whip the waves into chaos and rage, but Jesus calls us to rest, to be silent, to be still. The winds and the waves are calmed at his rebuke and commands. If the winds and the waves are calmed at his rebuke and commands, are you? Will you be silent? Will you be still before the Lord, who calls to you, who corrects you, who exhorts you, who encourages you, who is your helper always in times of trouble? Will you have the courage to submit to his power, or will you be cowed by the fears and concerns, the chaos and the rage of the world? Luke 8:25, he said to them, "Where is your faith?" They were fearful and amazed, asking one another, "Who then is this? He commands even the winds and the waves, and they obey him." Mark chapter 4, verse 40 through 41. Then he said to them, "Why are you afraid? Do you still have no faith?" And they were terrified and asked one another, "Who then is this? Even the wind and the sea obey him." Matthew 8:27. The men were amazed and asked, "What kind of man is this? Even the wind and the seas obey him." You know, faith is more than a mental acceptance in Jesus' power. We often will limit faith to that and say, "Oh yes, I believe," but then it doesn't interact with our lives whatsoever. "Oh yes, I believe," but there's no fruit of that faith. Faith is more than a mental acceptance of Jesus' power more than a simple mental acceptance of his authority, of his life, of his death, and of his resurrection. He asked, "Where is your faith?" to his disciples. If faith is simply something that we mentally believe or accept, then it will be shaken when the storms arise. It will be based on your expectations of life on earth, not on your expectations of Jesus as Lord over heaven and earth. The Apostle Paul says this about Abraham's faith in Romans chapter 4, verse 20 through 21. He, Abraham, did not waver in unbelief at God's promise, but was strengthened in his faith and gave glory to God, because he was fully convinced that what God had promised, he was able to do. Faith is full conviction of God's ability to do what he has promised, that he has already done what he promised through Jesus Christ. Full conviction. That entails confidence, devotion, awe and wonder, submission, allegiance, and trust in the power of God to save us and prepare a place for us in heaven. In other words, faith in God doesn't leave us meandering through life as though nothing has changed for us, or as though this world has more to offer than God in heaven. Faith submits our earthly fears to the fear of the Lord. It does not throw out our fear of the Lord in favor of awe and trembling at the hands of the world and its many storms. We do not waver in unbelief at God's promise, but we are strengthened in our faith. We give glory to God in the midst of the storm, fully convinced that God is more powerful than the storm, and that he will lead us to his dwelling place, to the other side. Will you have the courage to trust with full conviction in Jesus Christ when storms arise and when the winds are calmed, both times? Will you remain in awe? Will you remain in wonder, in absolute amazement at his power and authority? Will you even expect his power and authority to move in your life? Will you make space to see his power and authority move in your life? Will you be still and know that he is God? Stop fighting. Stop fighting against his rest, but trust that he will see you through the storm, whatever your personal storm might be. And listen, I'm not ignorant of the storms. I know what storms I deal with. I know what a lot of storms that you all deal with personally. I'm not ignorant of the storms. God is bigger than the storms. Not just our personal storms, but I see the news. I read the news. I know the turmoil in our nation and the turmoil that is currently going on around the world. I'm well aware of the moral decline, of the relativism, of the social idolatry that we have, of the lust for flesh and filling our hearts and our minds with nothing but desire instead of God. I'm well aware of it, and all of those things will lead to further storms. How easy it is to rage against the storms that everyone else stirs up, while conveniently ignoring our own lack of faith in God's promises, our own lack of faith in his provision, in his protection. To rage against the chaos rather than just being still and know that he is God. How easy it is to stuff the God-sized hole in our heart with fear and anxiety, with desires and striving. But that's not what he's called us to. Jesus calls us to rest as he rests, to go as he goes, to follow where he leads, to do as he does, to love as he loves, to be his hands and feet, to follow through the storms, through the valley of the shadow of death, toward the other side of the sea, to rest on the green pastures. And in doing so, to set that example for others. Not so that they follow us and elevate our glory, but to show others what it means to follow Jesus Christ with full conviction. The invitation is yours to be still, to be silent, to submit your storms to him. For he is God, and he is with you always, even to the end of the age, through every possible storm that might arise. That invitation is yours to wrestle with those storms, to rest with him, to be still and silent, to put your fear and your awe in the power and presence of Jesus Christ, who saves. Let's stand and sing one more song.
We're going to skip the next couple that are in there, so you're going to have to turn 2 pages.